to do. Mark Leonard needed to replace a missing top of a severed sewer pipe under this sidewalk. And it basically dealt with 3 houses that affected 3 households. And needed to replace 80 feet of sidewalk after the project was completed. So the sidewalk is a secondary item to the primary. Discussion in the Board of Control minutes was, do you replace, since it was repaired to sidewalks, do you replace the entire street? Do you go from Bassard to Glenwood, which would be about 800 feet at a cost of about $60,000? And the biggest part to it was time. This was an emergency. It wasn't something that could be engineered. Normally that's what it takes, time to do projects. And we do have a good engineering staff that would basically have taken care of this if it was a primary, but it wasn't. So in reading the Board of Control minutes, the decision was made to only replace the 80 feet of sidewalk that was affected by the project. And that's what they did. The biggest thing come down to it was that I think it was a good decision that they made. I think if you've had projects that have come before the council, the community, when these situations come up, you try to fix them as best as they can. And I think Mr. Leonard has basically conveyed those repairs to us in the past. And again, since I can't communicate back to this individual, I at least wanted to tell the individual that I did communicate this and let the councilman know. I did get a response back from the administration. And the biggest thing is that it was something that needed to be done now. It was something that couldn't be planned over an extended period of time and budgeted. And to spend $60,000 and do the entire block at the same location without engineering whether it would require setback if we did it correctly would have been wrong. And I think it was a good decision from the administration. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Good homework, Mr. Uresti. Thank you. Any other questions? Any other comments from council?
Just one further thing, Joe, to keep in mind, because we actually did want to take a serious look at doing the sidewalk. But the one question that I asked Mark Leonard at that time also was, what was the shape of the other parts of that sewer? And did we need to replace that? So if we were going to just look at the sidewalk, we were also going to have to look at the sewer as well, which would have really inflated that number. And he said that it was not in the best of shape, but it was okay and it was functional and it would work. So it wasn't just the sidewalk, it was also looking at other parts of that sewer to see if we needed to go back in there. So appreciate your comments.
Other comments from council? Okay. I don't have anything on my desk, which leads us to Mayor McCann.
Thank you, President McMaster. A couple things. First of all, we will read again from Mrs. Hauk's third grade class. And this story is from Priscilla. And Priscilla says that she wants to be a hairstylist when I grow up because they dye your hair and cut your hair. They also decorate your hair and do your nails any color. And they wear aprons. I'd just like to note to Priscilla that when you get your license in cosmetology, if I have any hair left and you would like to put it back to its natural color of brown, why, give me a call. Second, I'm very pleased to inform council of something that we learned over the weekend, that our school resource officer, John Williamson, was nominated by his assistant, or by our assistant police chief, Lee Martinez, for the local VFW Police Officer of the Year. John did receive that recognition from the VFW, but it goes further because he also received recognition as the District Officer of the Year and the State of Ohio Officer of the Year. So it was kind of a big deal, and it got to be a bigger deal, and it's a really big deal. But I thought I'd read to you and the folks at home the letter of recommendation that Assistant Chief Lee Martinez prepared for John's nomination. Patrolman John G. Williamson III came to the Defiance Police Department in 1992 after serving his country in the U.S. Army. Again, this is Lee Martinez writing this. I have known John his entire career at the Defiance Police Department. He has had an accomplished career not only in his duties as a police officer, but also for what he has done for the community. John started off as a road officer. He then became a detective. He held the position for 10 years, demonstrating his value in the position. He returned back to the road before becoming a certified school resource officer, or SRO as we know them. The SRO in the past was not really a formalized program, but more of just assigning a day shift officer to drive around the schools only to check in now and then. John has taken the position and made it a professional and specialized position. John has fostered a new and innovative partnership between the police department and the city schools, and most of all, the students. Honestly, when it's time for John to hang it up, he has set the bar so high it is going to be difficult for the next officer to follow in his shoes. John's community efforts have gone far above and beyond that of his dedicated service to the police department. John was instrumental in developing the Shop with a Cop program through the Defiance County Law Enforcement Association. This is a program that provides the opportunity for kids in need to shop for clothes during Christmas time. John was also the lead every year with the police department in a toy drive for the kids of Defiance, known as Christmas for Kids. If it weren't for John setting the box out at the police department every year, the department's participation would not have happened. I have always noticed around Christmas is when John seems to really come out and demonstrate his true giving nature. John has never asked for any recognition or kudos, as he seems driven by the spirit of giving. This award presents an opportunity to give John recognition for all he has done. Efforts like John often go unnoticed for all the hard work he has done over these 28 years. So at the very least, I can put forth a simple letter acknowledging some of what John has done. John's efforts should be historically preserved, and what better way to honor his work than being nominated for this prestigious award? The most amazing thing about John is the fact that he's still giving of his time with the same enthusiasm and vigor as with the first day I met him. He is the embodiment of giving. John is an example of an old school mentality that has made this country great. May his example be passed on to future officers who in this day and age are in need of examples such as John. John, as a police officer, has served his community through many years of steady and often unnoticed generosity. John took his demanding position of being a police officer and built it to help those people who were in need during their time of need. John's giving spirit cannot be stressed enough, as he is always giving, but is especially on display during Christmas. Be it giving someone a meal to giving a kid in need at Christmas time. John has anonymously fed the souls of those he has personally touched. I can attest that in doing so, John has lifted my spirits. The Defiance Police Department is better by having John. John has served his nation, state, and community, and his service is worthy of receiving national recognition, and that he has received. So I'd just like to, even though John couldn't be here, Mr. Leonard and I spoke with John earlier today and congratulated him on this, and invited him to come to our council meeting tonight so we could recognize him. But he said, Mayor, I've got the basketball tournament, so he's where he belongs and with the folks he would like to belong with. And, personally, I'll share my experience with John was a couple years ago when we were having our awards breakfast. John, at the last minute, had something come up at the school and was not able to attend. So after the meeting, I called Mr. Morton who at that time was still principal out at the high school, and said, "Mr. Morton, I'm just curious, do you have an assembly coming up anytime soon where we could present John's recognition for his years of service to the police department?" He said, "Mike, we actually do here, just in the next week or so, have somebody coming." And I said, "Well, I'd kind of like to do this as a surprise." And he said, "Absolutely." So the whole high school group of kids were together in the gymnasium. The place was full. And before that assembly began, I had the opportunity to recognize John. And it was at that point where I truly saw the love that those kids have of John as they all stood up, and it was an emotional moment and something I won't forget. So we are very proud of John, and we will hopefully sometime after the first of the year be able to bring him in and talk. And with that, I'd just like to maybe add some of my sentiments to what President McMaster shared in his prayer, and that 2020 is finally coming to an end. And I don't think any of us could probably be happier. Sadly, 2021 won't start out like maybe we had hoped. We're still going to be faced with issues of COVID and some disruption in our lives, probably at least through the first quarter and probably into the second quarter of 2021. But I believe we all can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And we're fairly certain, for example, that some of our safety services folks will be receiving the COVID vaccination as early as sometime next week. So it's coming to us very quickly, and very soon we will get it into our healthcare facilities, our extended care facilities, and all those people that need it the most will get that vaccination. And as I said, by Easter, I'm pretty sure it'll be universally available to those that choose to take it. So hang in there. Everybody have a great and happy holiday season, and a lot of good things coming our way in 2021, and I'm excited about it, and I'll be excited as those things develop to share that with the folks around this table and, of course, the rest of the community. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Leonard.
No. You're not done.
Oh, that's right.
Sorry.
Just two things that I spoke to council about was that we need to make an addition to our Shade Tree Commission. And so in January, I would like to appoint Jason Freiberg to our Tree Commission. Jason Freiberg is new to Defiance, but he's a tree guy. He's an arborist, and he has a lot of enthusiasm. He and Jen English, who leads a lot of that tree commission discussion, have a lot in common. Neither one of them likes Roundup. And so Jason is going to be a really, really good addition. And I'll just say, we have a spectacular tree commission. Those tree and bee folks have a real passion for what it is that they're doing. And I love going to those meetings. They're usually on a Wednesday afternoon, and they are just a good meeting. I know Mark that's back there in the control room is part of that group, especially on the B side. So it's just a good thing. So we'd like to bring him on board in January.
All right. In light of this, in regards to the appointment of Jason Freiberg to the Shade Tree Commission, shall the consent of council be given to the appointment proposed by the mayor? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Well, congratulations, Mr. Freiberg.
Thank you. And then the other thing that I spoke to council about a week or so ago is this old dog to my right here would like to take another shot at being our city administrator for 2021. So it is also my desire to extend a contract to Jeff Leonard as our city administrator for calendar year 2021.
And unless there is a motion and a second to reverse the determination of the mayor regarding the appointment of Jeff Leonard.
Make the motion.
Beg pardon?
Motion?
To reverse the determination? Okay. Double check it. So if there is no motion and no second, then council concurs with the mayor's appointment.
Mr. Uresti was just seeing if you were paying attention.
Wasn't sleeping this time.
Perfect time.
Gotta love live television. That, I believe now, no, by golly, you know, there is one more thing.
Oh, my lands.
Last week, we had a very small crisis here at the city in that Christy Feeney was on vacation. Connie Simon, who always fills in, and Debbie Stevens, our assistant, always fills in. Connie needed to leave quickly to take care of something unexpected, no big deal. Debbie was in with Mr. Leonard in some negotiation stuff. We had no one to staff our front desk. And I called Ms. Elders, and within 10 minutes, she was here and took care of that front desk. That's not the first time she's done that. She's done that many times. And I just wanted to say thank you for getting here so quickly and help us out for an hour or so.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. We all do. Now I am finished. I promise.
Mr. Leonard.
Well, I do have a few items tonight. One being in the spirit of appointments, we do have coming up what's called a CRA meeting, and in our credit reinvestment area, we have members, and actually we're missing 2 members. The 2 members that we're missing are appointments from council. So if you could submit names to me for any appointments that you, any people that you might know that would be interested in serving on a housing board. And we have 1 meeting a year, it's usually in December. We review our, actually the improvements made to homes or businesses and things like that, and we give approval to it. So from a time standpoint, it's just really actually 1 meeting per year, and it's in December. And we do that because it's the end of the construction cycle, and generally you have to submit any improvements to the county, and that would be eventually put on the tax rolls. So we are missing 2 members, and we need 2 of those members to be appointments from council. So if you could please submit to me any names that you might have, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. And you would need these names by when?
Well, I think at this point we have a meeting coming up, so they won't meet the 2020 deadline, but we want to make sure it's a 3-year term. It'll expire, it'll start January 1st and run for 3 years. So we would like to get those 2 appointments from council.
Okay.
Okay. The other thing that I have is I do have 2 expenditures to inform council of, which one being a final tank repair at the wastewater plant in the amount of $18,700. There's been some emergency repairs out there to the final tank. And then there's another purchase for Dell laptops in the amount of $17,492. And one of the things that we're trying to do is obviously enhance our connectivity here with the CARES Act money. So we're moving forward with that as well.
Jeff,
Yeah.
the purchase was for Dell laptops, not for Dell laptops. It was 12, right?
Well, actually, it's more than 4.
Yeah.
The purchase is for a number of Dell
Yeah.
laptops. I really didn't give an amount. Okay, yeah.
$17,000 for 4 Dell laptops.
No,
Those must be darn good laptops.
Now, the expenditure is for Dell, a number of Dell laptop
think it was
computers. Right. So again, in the spirit of trying to improve our connectivity.
Mr. Mass?
Yes.
Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
And Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
All right. Before we adjourn for the evening, we'll have an executive session.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. O'Donnell's not here this evening.
He is not.
And Mr. Leonard.
Nothing at this time.
Nothing at this time? Well, we have one item for discussion of legislative concern this evening. Ms. Elders, would you read the caption?
First reading by caption only. An ordinance amending ordinance number 8185 passed December 10th, 2019 to make appropriation for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Defiance, Ohio during the period of January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020.
Mr. Leonard.
Yes, thank you. Supplemental appropriation. This is the last bit of housekeeping that that I need to have council consider before we close out 2020. And as promised, this should do it, but shouldn't need to come back to council. We've accounted for just about everything we need, literally everything we need, not just about. I kind of laugh when I say this is kind of the last cleanup of the year, and then I submit a supplemental appropriation for over $7 million. So it does warrant some explanation. Most of it is, and I've submitted to you all a written explanation of these adjustments. Most of it is related to the bond issue that we did several weeks ago. We borrow a bunch of money, pay off a bunch of old debt, and the truth is you have to appropriate those dollars to pay off the debt. So the items in here, there are several of them that are over some millions of dollars. It authorizes the expenditure of those funds to pay off that debt for which we borrowed the money. Second item I'd want to discuss here is actually the second item on my letter of explanation, $348,000 addition to the CARES Act money that we received. This was a fund we created called the Local Coronavirus Relief Fund. We had previously received and discussed 3 allocations of federal funding. Literally within the last week, we received a 4th round of funding, which was kind of a reallocation of the unspent funds statewide from the first 3 rounds, another $348,000. So we've accounted for that in terms of expenditures, but we have to have council's authorization to make those legal. There are a few really tiny little items in here. The last year when we earlier this year when we got the results of our 2019 audit, you've seen the list of funds we have. I don't know how many there are. I've never counted them, but there's 35 or 40 different funds. A lot of them are fairly obscure, have tiny little balances. They were established a long time ago for a specific purpose and generally haven't been used much since. The auditor had suggested that we take action to spend those funds and zero out those funds and actually close them. So I have a note on a number of things here: clean up to close out fund, tiny dollar amounts, as I said, but it's just a bit of true housekeeping. Clean up the books. 2 other large items that were on here were on the second page of my explanation under the water fund. $907,000 was really originally budgeted in 2019. If you recall the slope work we had done behind the water plant where we had kind of the landslide. And then we had budgeted money for engineering for the GAC project, both in 2019. Those had to be reappropriated in 2020. The projects went forward, as you know, and I don't think we did reappropriate the money. That's what we're doing tonight for that. I don't know. I don't have any other explanation other than we could have done it in January. We're doing it in December. And then another item there, $227,000 for the Ralston Avenue project. That money was all originally budgeted in the capital improvements fund. But in fact, we could use water fund dollars to pay for the water line portion of that project. So it's not really a new appropriation, but it is new appropriation to the water fund. Same project that we had completed out there in the Ralston Avenue area. And And I will leave it at that. That really explains 99% of this stuff. So if you have any other questions, I'll entertain them, but otherwise, I'll finish.
Do we have any questions in these regards for Mr. Leonard? Mr. Engel?
No discussions, motion been a call?
We have no questions. We have a motion to suspend and call. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Mast?
Mrs. Crutch?
Yes.
Mr. Waxler?
Yes.
Mr. Mass?
Yes.
Mr. Ingo?
Yes.
Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
And do we have a motion to adopt?
Motion to adopt.
Mr. Mast, and a second?
Second.
Second. Mr. Hancock?
Mr. Waxler?
Yes.
Mr. Mass?
Yes.
Mr. Ingo?
Yes.
Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
Mrs. Crutch?
Yes.
And this ordinance is adopted. That's our only item of legislation for this evening. But before we adjourn for the evening, we do have an executive session. Before we actually go to executive session, does anyone have any letters, any emails, any comments from citizens for citizens' concerns? All right. If not, we can stretch our legs for a minute or two before we enter executive session.